Hey, Dawn Ziegler, the rebuilding coach here, and I'm so excited. I'll probably say that every single time I do one of these. But this one is because I had this big revelation about a problem that I've had in my mind probably for about 4 years. So here's the deal. Yesterday I talked about unconditional love. Today, the title of this one is Do You Look at Your Past with a Warped Rear View? I know that I certainly was. So here's the deal. So about a week ago or so, I was in the car driving. We were driving from Pennsylvania to Illinois and Indiana, right? And you have a lot of time to think when you're in the car. And so I was doing some, journaling. Obviously, I wasn't driving. And I was thinking about how probably for 4 years I've been beating myself up for something that I did in the past or didn't do in the past as far as parenting. And it all started probably 4 or 5 years ago when I uploaded a whole bunch of videos from when my kids were little to this, server, and I started watching them, and I just cried. I felt horrible. I was like, oh my gosh, my kids, were so little and so precious, and I screwed it up back then. And what I mean by that is I thought I was not present with them the way that I should have been. And I was so upset at myself because I was thinking I should have squeezed so much more joy out of those days, right? So, for example, I would, think back and say, like, oh my gosh, like those days when I was like doing the dishes or whatever, vacuuming, what I should have been doing? I should have been, baking cookies, like screw the house, let's just bake cookies and frolic and have fun, right? And so I didn't think that the kids suffered, but I thought that I did. I thought like all of those days that I was frustrated or stressed out or whatever, like I should have just been feeling joyful, right? And basically that I did it wrong. And I remember one time one of my counselors said, Dawn, you are really mean to yourself. She's like, take 35-year-old Dawn. She probably just needed a hug, but instead you're beating the shit out of her. And I was like, yep, pretty much. So I'm sitting in the car riding across probably Ohio, and I realized, like, what a pile of crap. I'm like, my parenting then is probably pretty much exactly the same way as it is now. And here's how I know. So my three kids are, basically grown and out of the house, and I'll see them occasionally depending on their schedule and when they're in town. And I was like, you know what? When the kids are over and we have dinner, right, which is fun, like after dinner, I do the dishes. I don't sit there and just go, "Oh, I don't care like what happens to the dishes and the food. Let's just sit around and hold hands and sing kumbaya." No, I do the dishes, right? So when I'm around my kids, all three of them at the same time or one on one, it's like we have times where we talk. We might have times where we bake. We have times where it's I just look at them and feel like rapturous joy. And then there's times where they drive me crazy. And then there's times when all of us sit around on our phones ignoring each other. So really my parenting hasn't changed. If you know me, I'm consistent. I'm probably one of the most consistent people you'll ever meet. And so I'm beating myself up now for being consistent. So that's part one. So here's part two. So one of the basic things that I believe is that life, you're not here to be happy. That's not why we were created and put here. We're here to grow. And then I kind of think like, oh my God, I sound like my mother. Because she would say, like, Dawn, we're not here to be happy. And I was just like, well, that doesn't sound like any fun. But it's true. We're supposed to grow. You're human. Half the time you're going to feel negative emotions, and half the time you're going to feel great emotions, positive emotions. So what I was doing is I was looking at myself and beating myself up. So let's just say I have changed. I'm in my mid 50s. And so I hope to God that I have changed, right? So whatever changes have happened for me from just at the age of whatever, 25, 35, 45 to now, like that's the point. Like, hallelujah, I've changed, right? But what I've been doing is beating myself up for what I'm supposed to do. So I've been growing, right? So let's just say I've grown as a parent. That's Fantastic. So think about yourself. Are there ways that you've been consistent, but you're beating yourself up? Are there ways that you've grown and changed and you're still beating yourself up because you look at the way you are now and then you look back to your past and say, like, did it wrong? But that's the point. So, what I want you to think about today is how you've grown and how you should celebrate it and stop beating yourself up. Because all of this kind of stuff is the emotional baggage that we bring into relationships, and it just makes them a lot harder than they have to be. So, anyway, if you need coaching, I'm always here. You can find a way to book a free session right here on this Facebook page, or you can go to my website, therebuildingcoach.com. Alrighty, until we meet again.